Being a business leader is full of challenges, and having the right infrastructure to support your business needs and your team is critical. But there's no need to worry, as I'm joined by a panel of industry experts to help navigate us through this often confusing landscape. Welcome to Dell Drive. Today I'm joined by Lou, Melyvn and Dan, and we're taking on the challenge of building a plan to address your IT needs. So guys, I've decided as an organisation I'm ready to embrace and make change, but I guess what's the first step in planning that personal change?
So we really need to understand where you are. So you've decided to make the change, fantastic, we're here to support you. But what is it that's in your estate? What is it that you do? How do users work? What are all the different facts that we need to consider to make sure we can build the right plan?
Because it might not be that I change everything, right, as an organisation.
No, it could be you change elements you need to change, that you plan to change some elements in the short term, some in the long term, but we need to look at the facts, the data. We need to speak to you just to understand what your objectives are, how things work for you, and how we take things forward.
Yeah, and there could be, although it's the IT department generally that are driving this with other departments like them, might be HR as well, but the company themselves are going to have a corporate vision. So you have to try and make sure that the sort of vision from the IT team doesn't outstretch the corporate vision, because if it does, then whatever their planning is likely to get blocked higher up because it doesn't match where they want to be. So you have to understand it at all levels within the company. Yeah. I think. Yeah, do you agree with that, Dan?
Absolutely. I think obviously there's a corporate vision and there's a need for the company to develop whatever support organisation and support structure the end users need, but ultimately it's about the end users and what their expectation is, ensuring that they have a great experience with their IT organisation, and it's also smooth and keeps them productive, because ultimately that's what a customer wants. They want to have their people doing the jobs that they were hired to do.
And so what are our touch points as an organisation on that then? So we're going into this company, and am I just going to take the IT department's word as gospel, or am I going to go further than that?
So no, we're going to look after all aspects. So we're going to look at the users, we're going to look at the commercial leads, we're going to look in the IT teams, we're going to go through and look and work with them. So this is not going in and monitoring, this is working with them to understand what will best fit their needs. I think, and guys, you know, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we work with all organisations, public sector, small business, medium business. Some people don't have IT staff. So sometimes you can actually be guiding some business owners. So we're very conscious that we get the right answers and the right information for all sizes of customers.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in customers where, you know, it started off with the IT people, but you end up with also HR, you end up with health and safety, you end up with the sustainability people from the company. So you end up with a sort of a rich gamut, if you like, of different areas, all putting their ideas in, and from that helps bring up the whole sort of plan to help you move forward. I mean, what Dan was saying about making sure that the end users have the right devices, it's a massive subject really, because, you know, if IT departments had an NPS score, it's quite interesting, because most people or most staff in a company look at the IT team and think they're the people that either caused the trouble in the first place, or they're just the people that I call if I've got a problem. Not actually, these are people who are providing me with the right IT to move forward, help me do my job as well as I can. And so you have to try and change that perception as well, so people get the right machine. And we do that via personas.
You hit the nail right on the head there with the word perception, because what somebody's perception about what they need to do their job may not be the reality. It may not be what they actually need for their job. So we try and work from a data-driven perspective. So spend some time, put some tools in place to collect data from how people are doing their jobs today, which devices work well for them, which ones don't. And on that basis, that's the starting point. So we start from the point of, we think that this kind of role requires this kind of device. So it becomes a little bit better aligned I think human nature being what it is, if somebody came to you and said, hey, would you like the really nice, shiny, expensive one? I'm pretty sure you'd say yes, right? But maybe actually for your role, that isn't actually what you need. Maybe something else is better suited. So we always like to work from a position of understanding data, understanding facts, and then build from that point.
I guess that really helps support as well the argument, all of that data-driven analysis, because you might have a pushback. Although an employee might like something new and shiny, there's probably someone at the top of the chain that's saying, we can't afford that, we'll just have this level.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally people have, as we said before, have always gone for sort of same old, we'll have a machine for virtually everyone. However, you know, they tend to think that that is the best way to manage the budget. But really all that does is just drive the value that the end users are getting down instead of up. So by changing and looking at the personas, yes, some people might get a better machine in their perception. Other people might get one that's not quite so powerful. So actually that level of spending, so the budget use, really stays somewhere similar, but actually they're meeting the needs of all the various people far more accurately.
And everybody's being that much more efficient and productive as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing where, you know, what you don't want is people coming from university and looking at the IT you're offering them and going, well, actually, I got better kit than this when I was at university. And they probably did in a lot of cases. So, you know, it's important to, as we say, make sure right device, right user to give them the best possible user experience. And quite naturally, that will drive up the internal NPS score, let's say, of the IT department, which in a lot of cases is quite low, just simply because of the user's perception.
And let's talk about implementing a plan then. We've helped our customer or organization figure out the plan. What do we do about implementation?
So we've got a whole structure around implementation, which we can go through. I think for me, the point I would shout out, and Dan makes reference to it, is the ongoing review. So the plan we will build, the plan is the plan. We will take into account all stakeholders, and then how do we continually monitor? How do we continually review? How do we make sure you're still getting, even 3, 6, 9 months, the right solution? And Dan, the team do that really, really well, don't they? That implementation and that follow-up.
Absolutely. I mean, we've had a lot of practice over the last 3 years or so of really being effective and efficient in terms of getting devices to people in difficult conditions. We all know what happened. But the reality is that maybe the devices that those people received weren't quite right for the job, despite the best efforts of the profiling and the persona assessment in terms of trying to understand what somebody really needed for their job. So we're taking another look at this and saying, well, maybe if we track what the device is doing and how the device behaves, is it still the right device for the person? Is it still the right device for the job? Maybe somebody's changed their jobs and IT have just said, well, you've got your machine and you're going to have it for another 3 years because that's what the policy is. So we're now looking at ways of looking at that continuously to ensure that you still have the right device for the job. And if you don't, do something about it.
If an organisation decides not to make wholesale changes, and perhaps they've got some devices implemented by Dell Technologies and then by a previous provider, is there a way that we can compare productivity and usage?
Absolutely. So just, again, coming back to data, it's my favourite thing because it speaks the truth. It tells you what's happening with those devices. So you can do comparisons between different devices, different vendors, and so on. I guess the ultimate thing is once you've got that data, you need to do something with it. So we have the ability to look at people's estate in a way that is complete and understand where there are problems, where there are possible challenges for individuals, where they perhaps need a better machine, or perhaps the device has come to the end of its normal 3-year life cycle, but still works and it's still sufficient. You know, personally, I've experienced this recently. My corporate machine was coming up on 4 years old, so I had it just before pandemic started, and you know, I was like, well, fine, I don't need a change. I'm happy. IT eventually hounded me and forced me to have a new device.
Humans, we don't like change, do we?
I don't like change. Absolutely, and they sent me a new device, and you know, my personal experience was like, bear in mind, 4 years ago, we didn't have this kind of great ability to deploy remotely and do these amazing self-service provision of devices. So my experience of IT was 4 years old, right? That my experience of getting a new device is out of date, I'll be honest. So getting the new device today or last week, it was really great. I received the device in my house, didn't have to go anywhere for it, opened it up, turned it on, connected to a Wi-Fi network and logged myself in. And, within probably half an hour or so, I had access to all of my company stuff. It was great, and again, that's the modern experience. That's kind of that user experience that everyone is expecting or would like to have, And I'm like, okay, maybe changing over to a new device wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
You didn't even know that you needed what you needed.
No.
Correct.
No, but I think that's the importance of having a plan. When COVID hit and everything changed, not a lot of people had planned for it. There were supply challenges left, right and centre. Customers, end users couldn't get hold of kit. So what do you do as a customer in that situation? So that's, I think, why we're so focused on delivering that customer experience, delivering the customer value, delivering a plan. Yeah. Because actually we need to help them navigate around that. So should anything ever happen again, there is a go-to, there's a plan. We know what we're doing.
And as market leaders, we know what is out there, what we have access to, right? And perhaps an employee or even an IT department don't know about the latest technology and innovation.
Often they're too busy doing what they're doing. Yeah. So the point Dan made about making sure you get the machine, and zero touch is the buzzword there, if you like. It leaves the IT department because when people have to do all the imaging of hundreds of machines on site and then get them to the end users, so time consuming. And in a way, the people who do it could be doing something far more important. So by using and implementing tools like Intune, Autopilot, VMware products, you can automate that so it can be delivered directly to your house or to a point that the company designates. Cuts out all of that work that the company had to do themselves previously. And that's just an advance in software. So, COVID has in many ways just reshaped the whole landscape, because how many people were doing so many conference calls before then? Teams, Zoom, etc. They must have, the size of those companies is because people just weren't doing it. Or not to that extent. We were doing like 6-7 calls a day. Zoom tiredness was coming in, but it's made a difference. And to facilitate that, you need different elements in the machine because it needs different bandwidth to supply those conference calls, etc. So there's lots of things to look at from that point of view.
And I think you're right about that. It's we talk about the user experience. It is important because that's the device in front of you is what people feel. That's how they relate to the organization. But it takes some infrastructure behind the scenes to get that done. And again, we need the IT organizations of our customers to be working smarter, not harder. So I know it's a great time-worn phrase, right? But a lot of that is about process optimization, outsourcing. Let's not say outsourcing, but moving those tasks which don't have any value, like imaging a device. State of the art is no longer getting your CD-ROM out and installing Windows, right? That's not how we do things these days. It's very, very different. So we say to our customers, let's take off all of those low-value, tedious, boring tasks that nobody really wants to do. Somebody has to do them. Let us do them because we can automate that. We have really, really good ways of automating those kind of things. So by the time the device arrives with your end user, it doesn't even have to go to IT anymore. By the time it arrives with the end user, almost all of that configuration is done, and the customer IT organization can spend their time thinking about how better to automate, how better to deploy things, at a much higher level. They don't need to be in the weeds. They don't need to be putting USB sticks in devices again. I
think simply for me, it's let us help you put a line in the sand. Let us help you build a plan that's going to help you meet your business objectives, keep your users happy, keep your talent, and that we can continually monitor for you to make sure that plan stays on track and allows you to move forward.
And with our end user profiles as well, we can begin to forward plan the next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you know, we talk about automation in delivering the units to the end users and how they work, but actually the ongoing life cycle where, you know, the IT department in effect have to support those devices, okay, and so people want quick support. They want to know that it's going to be quick, effective, and the company that's supplying it is reliable. So, you know, we have automation even in our support tools. So, you know, they're generally recognized, I think, throughout the industry as you know, the #1 support package you can get. When end users vote on these things, as they do, we generally do come out top in those polls. So it runs through using, as Dan's quite rightly said, the data available through the whole sort of life cycle. It's not, as we said previously, let's buy this because on this day it's the cheapest. Let's look at the cost over the whole life cycle.
It's all about a journey with Dell Technologies.
It is the journey, you're right.
The journey, right, yeah.
Well, Lou, Melyvn, Dan, thank you so much for that dive into the knowledge of all things Dell Technologies. So now it's over to you guys. Get in touch and challenge us to personalize a plan for you and your organization. Feel free to comment and share this content and check out our next installment, which is all about how to execute your plan.